Every day, roughly 2,300 Americans go missing. 2,100 of those are children, with one going missing every 40 seconds. In most cases, they're found safe and unharmed, while other cases spark an all-out investigation. This would be the case for 15-year-old Gabrielle Swainson, a teenage girl from Columbia, South Carolina who would go missing. And upon her disappearance, the world around her would come to a complete halt. The normally quiet town would now be filled with voices searching for Gabby. And when the investigation concludes and the doors close on the case, other doors would begin to open, and the skeletons in the closet would begin to cry for justice. June 26, 1997. The world would make way for Gabrielle Swainson, but to those who know and love her, she was simply Gabby. Upon entering this world, she would be living in Lexington, South Carolina. When she was younger, her parents would separate, and she would ultimately be raised by her mother, Elvie. By age 5, Gabby is described as someone who is smart, a loving soul, someone who knew the importance of placing others before herself. Although Gabby did have siblings, she was her mother's only child. So aside from being family, they were close friends. 5-year-old Gabby had done a lot of things by that age. She had done gymnastics, participated on 2 separate dance teams, and even did a little modeling. But when she wasn't busy with that, her favorite thing to do was to play with dolls with her mother. By the year of 2012, Gabby is now 15 years old. Her and her mother now live in Columbia, South Carolina, where she attends Ridgeview High School. Teenage Gabby is still the same driven child she was from age 5. She still participated in a lot of things, such as dance, but now she's picked up a few more hobbies. She had made the cheerleading team, but she had also picked up playing the guitar. Her teachers describe her as a ray of sunshine, someone who was eager to learn, someone who was going places in life. By mid-August of 2012, summertime break is now winding down, and the children are preparing to go back to school. But before the break ends, there's still a little fun left. On Friday, August 17th of 2012, as normal, Gabby would go to her guitar lessons. But today was special. She had a date planned that night, her first date in fact. A date with a guy she had known since middle school. Now, at first, her mother was a little apprehensive, but after a little convincing, she agreed to let her go on this date with a friend. On that night, her mother had picked her friend up, dropped them off at the mall. They hung out a bit, and then she would drop her friend back off, in which afterwards, her and Gabby would head home. Her mother describes her on this night as happy, excited. She must have enjoyed the date with her friend. By 8:30 p.m., she had to turn in her phone. This was a rule at the house. She wasn't allowed to have it overnight, so she would give it to her mother, and they would spend the night as normal. They would watch a movie, and then Gabby would turn in for bed. Around 3 a.m. the next morning, on August 18th, her mother would decide to go in to work early to finish a work project. That way she could spend the rest of the weekend with her daughter. So around 3 a.m. that morning, she would get up, she would check on her daughter, and she would head to the office, not knowing that that would be the last time she ever saw her daughter. Saturday, August 18th, 2012, approximately 7 a.m. This would be the time that Gabby's mother would return home from work. But upon entering the home, the first thing she would notice is that an alarm clock was going off. Hearing this, she would yell upstairs for her daughter to turn it off. But the alarm clock kept going, so her mother would go upstairs to turn it off herself. But when she enters her daughter's room, she's in for a shock. Her daughter isn't inside of her bed. She would search the home, but still couldn't find her. So she would decide to call her phone. The first phone call, the phone rang, but there was no answer. But by the time her mom called it the second time, it was as if someone had powered off the phone, because it was going straight to voicemail. The mother would immediately know that this wasn't like Gabby, so this was cause for panic. She would first call a family friend, a guy whom she had dated, a man who goes by the name of Freddy Grant. Together, they would go and search for Gabby. But after not being able to find her, panic would begin to set in, and her mother would officially report her missing. With a young teenage child missing, the authorities would swiftly swing into action. They would immediately go to the home of Elvie Swainson in order to process her daughter's room. Upon entering the room, they would quickly come to realize that a lot of her personal items were still there, such as her wallet, her purse, her ID, and with significant items such as these still being present at the home, it's an immediate red flag. But also while analyzing the room, they would realize that her alarm clock was set for 5:45 a.m., which raises the question, was she meeting someone? Or was this purely an accident that her alarm was set for 5:45 a.m.? But regardless of the answer, Gabby Swainson is missing, and the town is now actively searching for her. Word would begin to spread throughout Columbia, South Carolina about the missing teen. 2 days afterwards, the media would pick up the story and air her missing poster. But although there were big resources being used, they were no closer to finding Gabby.
A Richland County mom is pleading for your help tonight to find her missing teenage daughter.
She's 15-year-old Gabrielle Swainson. She went missing Saturday between 3 and 7 that morning. She's 5 feet 2 inches tall with black hair, last seen wearing pink and black pajamas.
News 19's Nate Stewart spoke to her mom tonight, who's asking the public for your help.
Right now, I can't even believe I'm going through this. I cannot believe I'm going through this right now.
It's a mother's worst fear. Elva Swainson says she came home from work on Saturday, but her 15-year-old daughter Gabrielle was not in her room.
Just imagine your child going missing and you know nothing about how that happened. Just imagine that.
With a house full of family in town to help with the search, Swainson has now turned to the public for help. This afternoon, a search party posted flyers around their Northeast Columbia neighborhood for signs of Gabby.
Asking people knocking on doors because there's so many neighborhoods in this area.
Swainson describes her daughter as a good student, a cheerleader at Ridgeview High School. She doesn't believe there was anything going on that would have caused her daughter to run away.
That's the puzzling part. So right now, I'm just focus on finding my child and bringing her home.
While friends and family search the streets, others have turned to social media sites like Facebook and Twitter using the hashtag #FindGabby, hoping that the large online communities will turn up clues.
All right, please take another good look at this picture. This is Gabby. Sheriff Leon Lott says that preliminary investigations show no signs of foul play. If you see her, if you think you saw anything that could help in this investigation, you are encouraged to immediately call 911.
Before you know it, it's August 23rd of 2012. Officially, the first day of school. But this year was different. The hallways were -1. And instead of the hallways being filled with the laughter of playing teens, it's now replaced with whispers about a missing person. While investigating this case, the authorities would do the normal rundown. They would check out the date that she had with the guy. They cleared him. They would even check out the mother's friend, Freddy Grant, and they cleared him. Police would receive tips and leads, but none of them would pan out. By August 28th of 2012, the authorities would decide to hold a press conference And inside of this press conference, they would bring forth a suspect, and the culprit involved was closer than anyone ever thought. In light of Gabby's disappearance, the authorities have now chosen to hold a press conference. And in this press conference, they would release that their number one suspect would be 52-year-old Freddy Grant, the mother's on and off again ex-boyfriend, the man she called first when her daughter disappeared. At the time, 52-year-old Freddy Grant was an off and on again boyfriend of Gabby's mother. At that current time, Freddy was actually working on the home of Elvie Swainson. He would occasionally do landscaping, but at that time he was working on the floors of the home. When word began to spread that Freddy Grant was in fact a person of interest in this case, people began to blame the mother. Background checks would reveal that Freddy Grant was a violent person. In his younger years, Freddy Grant was in the military, but while in the military, he would commit crimes and ultimately be sentenced for those. He would then catch a possession charge, and then over the years it was kind of the same thing. He would be in and out of jail for miscellaneous crimes. But in 2011, he would be charged with domestic violence. The charges would be brought forth by his then girlfriend, Adriana Laster. After this incident, Adriana had decided to move back home with her mother, but the day before she was set to go home, Adriana would call her mother and tell her that Freddy had taken the money, so she wouldn't be able to make it. After this transpired, the mother would call the authorities to do a wellness check. The authorities would happen to find Adriana Laster. She would be with a friend, and she seemed like she was okay. However, after this, Adriana would never be seen again, not by her family nor her friends. And now the man whom she was dating at the time of her disappearance is directly involved in a missing persons case. When this news was released, the town began to fill with whispers about the mother of Gabby. They began questioning, why was Freddy even around? Why would she allow someone like that around her child? But at that time, a grieving mother who's missing her daughter was now dealing with abuse, at least mental abuse, of people saying she was unfit, when in reality, she didn't know about Freddy's past. Now being a person of interest, the authorities had enough to draw up a search warrant to search Freddy's home. While inside of the home, they didn't find anything linking him directly to Gabby, but they did find firearm ammunition, and with him being a convicted felon, that's all they needed to take him into custody. He would be arrested on those charges, free to sit in jail while the authorities further investigate the case of Gabby Swainson. Time continues to elapse, and while the world is searching for Gabby Swainson, Freddy Grant isn't talking to the authorities. He has nothing to say about the case. The authorities would decide to hold another press conference, when once again, they would release more information that wasn't released previously. Inside of this press conference, they would reveal that on the day they analyzed Gabby Swainson's room, they found traces of blood, which further escalates this situation.
Blood. In her bedroom at home? We found blood in her bedroom.
A lot? Or like?
We found blood in the bedroom. And it was her blood. And it was blood that should not have been there.
Time would continue to elapse and things would go as normal. The authorities would regularly provide updates, and then on September 5th of 2012, they would once again hold a press conference. Inside this press conference, they would reveal how they think Freddy Grant got inside of the home. They believe he entered with a key that he received himself from Gabby's mother. in order to work on the floors of the home. But when the mother was questioned, she told the authorities that he told her he lost the key. She now knows that information is false, because while conducting the search warrant on Freddy Grant's home, they would in fact find the key used to gain entry, and then afterwards abduct Gabby Swainson. By January of 2013, Freddy Grant would stand trial for the ammunition found inside of his home. During the trial, Freddy Grant's daughter would show up, and she would testify that the ammunition belonged to her, taking full responsibility of the items. But despite Freddy Grant's daughter showing up and trying to relieve him of his trouble, he would be found guilty and sentenced to 17 years in a federal prison. But the elephant was still in the room. At that time, Freddy Grant still hadn't been brought up on charges for the disappearance of Gabby Swainson. But that was about to change, because 6 months into the investigation, he would officially be charged with kidnapping. But there's a twist to this. His daughter would also be charged. She would be charged with accessory after the fact. It turns out that Gabby Swainson's phone records would reveal that her last location was in fact at the home of Freddy Grant. Her phone would ping exactly 400 yards away from his home. Around 7:30 a.m., Gabby Swainson's phone would be powered on. It would make a couple of calls, and one of those calls was a call to Freddy Grant's daughter's phone. That's a direct connection. So, with enough to charge her with accessory, they did it. Once learning this, Freddy would have a change of heart. He would decide to make a plea deal with the prosecutors. Inside of this plea deal, he didn't want his daughter to be involved with the case. In order to save his own daughter, he would have to tell the story about how he took the life of someone else's. He admitted to kidnapping 15-year-old Gabby Swainson, taking her from her home, in which afterwards he took her to his home. Now, the description of what transpired at his home is very vague. The authorities never fully told what exactly transpired. Now, I don't know if it's because he just simply didn't tell them, or they wanted to keep facts to themselves. But the autopsy results were released, and the medical examiner would rule her death homicide due to suffocation. After this happened, Freddy Grant then took her body out to a secluded field. He then placed her body inside of a 5-foot deep hole. After burying her, he would disguise the area, placing items on top of the gravesite. Shortly after burying the remains of 15-year-old Gabby Swainson, he would receive a phone call from her mother. He would then go meet with Elvie and help her search for the daughter that he just buried. Part of Freddy Grant's plea deal would include that his sentence would be 30 years. That's right, 30 years in exchange for the body, in which he led the investigators to. 1 year after the disappearance of Gabby Swainson, she would be laid to rest. The family and friends could officially mourn, knowing that Gabby was now found. What happened to 15-year-old Gabrielle Swainson is truly heartbreaking. As for a motive in this case, he never really offered one. Aside from a preliminary autopsy, not much was released, but I kinda have an idea of what happened. But due to the lack of public evidence, I'll keep my theory to myself. But I'm sure you guys know what it is. 15 years old. 15. Taken away from this earth before she had even begun to live. My heart truly goes out to the family. Rest in peace, Gabrielle Swainson. Thank you for being a light for others. Normally, this is where I end the story, but this story is just beginning. There is a set of bones that begin to cry out from the dirt after Gabrielle received justice. The victim in question, Adriana Laster, who would at last finally be found.
Some closure for a South Florida family. More than 10 years after their loved one was reported missing, her remains were found in South Carolina.
Joel and Trina, this family has waited more than 12 years. Years of not knowing, heartache, sleepless nights. Well, now they have some answers. Not all, but some.
Last week in a news conference, the Richland County coroner and sheriff said human remains found in a Richland County landfill the week prior are Laster's. Her family is still processing the discovery.
I didn't want to believe it, but...
Laster, born in Key West, was the youngest of 5 children. She was cheerful,
beautiful, intelligent,
loving and caring, especially when it came to her daughter.
She taught me how to love, in spite of who hurt you.
The Richland County Sheriff says he's confident Grant is responsible for Laster's death. Our affiliate station there says Laster filed several reports of abuse against Grant. The Sheriff's Department says Grant is currently serving a 30-year sentence in a separate case. Laster's family says there's still one thing they want to know. Why